Live tonight from iRacing's virtual Darlington Raceway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 9 of the 2022 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. As always, we're happy that you're spending your Monday night with us on RaceSpotTV with our producer Tyler Maxon downstairs alongside of myself, Evan Pasoko. Happy to be joined by Nolan Rempel and Terry Radford at the broadcast booth. And Nolan, I'll jump to you first on this one. We are almost at the halfway point of the regular season. The All-Star break coming up next Monday night, but tonight a dance with Darlington, the track too tough to tame, and it's throwback night on top of it. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun over the course of tonight's 200 miles of racing, but do not let that distract us from the fact that this is a critical race and a challenging racetrack.
It is one of the most challenging racetracks that you can find out there on the NASCAR calendar. This track itself only about 2 lanes wide if you're that lucky. Side by side, forget about it. When it gets to the quarters, it is so rare to be seeing drivers actually managing to make it side by side, 2 abreast for very long in these corners, let alone going 3 wide. But you know there's going to be somebody out there that might attempt that here tonight.
There is always somebody who wants to attempt it, and of course we talk about where this race falls on the calendar, Terry, coming off of a couple of unique racetracks, right? The dirt race at Bristol, Talladega, Dover, now Darlington, a unique and challenging stretch that brings us, as I mentioned, to the brink of the midway point in this regular season, and there's really not much to be said about Darlington. You say the name of the racetrack, it gets the message across. This unique racetrack has been perplexing drivers from the highest of skills levels in stock car racing for decades, and tonight the drivers of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series have to try to tackle it for the first time in these next-gen cars.
Yeah, and you see what the layout is as we look at the virtual map, and what a beautiful shot of this racing surface. You start at the start-finish line. Everything here has a degree of banking to it, and it also has a very rough surface. So when you dive it down into one, you're going to burp that throttle. Well, you don't know if you can even get back on the throttle. The back end wants to slide, and the next-gen cars are going to present a weird challenge because the back end, while you think it might be durable, that right rear wants to slide off a whole lot more than what it used to. So this ought to be pretty fun here.
It definitely will be, and you talk about the banking, 25 degrees in the tighter 1 and 2 end of the racetrack, 23 degrees down in 3 and 4. As always, the story goes that this racetrack was built on an old farm in the middle of rural South Carolina in its unique shape, courtesy of the middle pond down there at the end of the racetrack. So that's why the racetrack tighter at one end. You can see the middle pond up on your screen, and they say that minnows still swim today, more than a half a century later. Well, drivers will be racing tonight about 180 miles an hour every single time around. Drivers just finishing up their warm-up session before we say let's go racing tonight. 41 drivers on the grid this afternoon, Nolan, so no eliminations.
No eliminations, which is, of course, what these guys are going to be wanting to see out there on the racetrack. They're going to be able to push as hard as they can early on. And now that qualifying is over, you know that the next thing everybody's looking forward to, how do you survive those first few laps, and how do you make sure that you can be there to fight for those final spots in the last few as well?
Going to find out how this one shakes out as we get ready to go racing for the Southern 200. Let's go trackside and take a look at your SK Sim Racing starting grid. It is pole position for the Flat Out Motorsports Mustang of Sam Nieto. 29.460 will bring us to the green flag alongside Brandon 6. Cody Harris and Agnew Phillip will make up row 2 with Michael Laraya and Brandon Bowie, your top 6.
That'll put Joseph Tyson 7th place with Nick Silver in 8th. Bradley Burke and Nicholas Cohen round out 9th and 10th with Anthony DeBarro and Timothy Johnson 11th and 12th, Terry.
Andrew Freenosh back there in 13th with Jeremy Miller, Dylan Parker, Rhett McBride, Thomas George, and Braden Whitaker comes back after forever, it seems, on 18th.
And continue it on through. Kyle Kamer going to be alongside Kevin King, who's got the throwback vibes on his boosted Chevrolet. Ross Cato to William Schmidt through 22nd with David Cobb. And Michael J. Johnson, your top 24.
Then it's Tom Wetmore, Kyle Trudell, Chris Ramel, Grant Davis, Brian Chambliss, and Benazzi Major.
Over here to 31st, you got Tom Morano, Shane Ewing, Sean Kalis, Sean Castro, Eric Stanford, and Matt Danson. Wow, Matt Danson, 36th.
A little bit of work to do for Danson down there in the running order. You got Horn, Winemaster, Harry Grindle making his first start of the season, 39th. Mike Kaczynski and Chris Edwards. That is look top to bottom at your SK Sim Racing starting grid. SK Sim Racing, an iRacing team and channel with an emphasis on reaching those new to the Oval Sim Racing community. You can connect with them at facebook.com/SK Sim Racing, on Twitter at SK Sim Racing 1, and you can race with Champions Race at sksimgear.com. Pace car off it in the field in the hands of the Coca-Cola Ford Mustang of Sam Nieto. It is throwback week for the Full Throttle Cup Series as we say, let's go racing in Darlington. Oh, a couple of brave souls and a spinner. The 13 into traffic. Huge crash in turn number 1. The cars stay straight, though. Do they stay green? No. Now the yellow comes out.
And it was for a second incident, actually, that this caution was thrown for. Not actually the initial one, but it was very much related, Evan. It all kicked off when Miller got hooked by Andrew Freenosh after being squeezed into the wall, coming down into turn number 1. As Miller came up, he clipped Dylan Parker, who slammed into the wall and immediately lost it in turn 2. That's the reason why we're under the yellow flag.
It got crazy early. The point that I was going to make was there were some brave souls tearing midfield who were going 3 wide. We saw a battle side by side going into the corner for P3, but there was the touch there. Freenosh into Miller, and then right there, when Miller clipped Dylan Parker, he was unable to hang on to it. He eventually brought out the yellow. Somehow there was no caution for Miller's initial spin. It was only Miller and Braden Whitaker into the fence, but it did eventually lead into a caution, and that is a messy opening lap and a half as Andrew Freenosh claims responsibility for the incident.
Man, that reminds me right there. Just got called my first IndyCar race yesterday here on RaceSpot, and turn 1, lap 1, 9 Indy cars go flying in the air, and everybody's brave on the initial couple laps there. I don't know why. I mean, you've got so much opportunity. You got 146 laps around this track. You already know that some people are going to push. They're going to tear the right front of the tires off. They're going to bounce off the wall a little bit. You're going to be able to make track position up. I don't know why we're pushing so hard, but yeah, for the drivers that was collected in that, they should be all right. Not a whole lot of damage back here in the back.
Well, it's notable that Andrew Freenosh, the driver involved in that incident last season, only one Darlington race was on the calendar, and it was the playoff race won by Andrew Freenosh. He started on pole position for that race, led 125 of 184 laps to go on to take home the checkered flag in that one. So he has claimed responsibility, as I mentioned, for the incident. So he'll get the end of the longest line penalty, and it will drop to the rear of the field. There was as well a change for the race lead after the opening lap of this race, and Sam Nieto, I think, knew, Nolan, that he was going to be in trouble on the bottom. He was asking to race control, can I choose the outside for the restart? Race control said no, you can only choose your lane, inside or out for restarts. So clearly he did not want to be on the bottom. Brandon Six got a good jump on him, and Brandon Six, as the control car, no surprise, will choose the outside for this restart. So clearly, bottom of the front row, not the place to be.
And Andrew Freenosh, I think unsurprisingly, has taken responsibility for that first caution on the night. He is in pit road, and I believe he is just wanting to make sure that he's actually going to be at the tail end of the field. The EOL penalty being given just a second ago. But we're lined up, doubled up, ready to go, back racing at the track Too Tough to Tame. And, well, a couple of drivers finding the hard way, but I think it is worth noting that wasn't necessarily the track that caused that first caution.
Yeah, this track is funny because it looks really wide from up in the air. I mean, look at all those lanes. 16 lanes, right? But you can really only work with those top 3 above the white hash marks. So this racetrack does get really tight, and there's going to be a lot, I think, of car-to-car contact this afternoon. Pace car off it in. Brandon Six can restart this race when he so decides. It's going to be a slow roll for the life of a sim racer Chevrolet. Now he puts the right foot down. Green flag back in the air. He's got a great jump to turn number 1.
And so far, single file from first place all the way back to about 10th. And then you got the likes of Kevin King making his way up and past Tim Johnston. Bradley Burke also going on the attack against Nick Cohan. You can see Cohan running up the hill. It is worth noting that you mentioned you can only really use those top 3 lanes, Evan, when it comes to the banking at this racetrack. Funnily enough, that banking was actually only there to help the cars slow down when the track was first made. Of course, did it take long for people to realize, hey, it's actually faster to run up here, and the racing line has stayed up there ever since.
Yeah, the track has had different times and places in it, but as they paved it a little bit, they had one strip in the middle, and then they just said, you know what, we'll just let it do its own thing. As the car gets into the wall, they're coming off the exit of the corner. But all in all, this track right here is just too iconic. My first race was right here. Oh, car in the wall, they're wrecking.
It's a big one.
Flag. It is the 15 machine involved in that one, and more drivers going to pile in. Some are still picking up some initial damage, but Rhett McBride is destroyed on lap number 8, and he has quickly claimed responsibility for the incident. So what went wrong for the 15 Chevrolet? I did mention somewhat offhandedly that these drivers are going to have to figure out not only how to tame this Darlington Raceway, but do it for the first time in these next-gen cars. That appears to be a challenge. McBride going for a pass on Burke for 12th. Yeah, just gave it a little bit too much, right? You're going to go down below that racing groove to make that move. And when he came back up onto the bank, Nolan, car got a little bit sideways, overcorrected, and a hard hit into the fence.
He got hit by all but one car in that wreck. Every single driver but one in that incident hit him at some point or another, and that is about one of the hardest hits you can have at the Darlington Raceway. You're at one of the fastest points in the corner, just sent it in a bit too much, and that is why this track is called the track Too Tough to Tame. That one was caused by the racetrack, and I guarantee you could probably get away with that move just about anywhere else, but at Darlington, it really just does not work. The track surface is so old, so bumpy, it's just so precarious to try to pull off a move by ducking down onto the transitioning like that to make something work.
So an early incident involving car-to-car contact, and now an early race incident involving a single car spin. We'll watch the onboard perspective from the SK Sim Racing entry of Kamer. I mean, he gets through it, but not without a good shunt to the front end. And I think 2 yellows in the opening 10. Terry answers the question. If you're sitting at home joining us and thinking, you know, should I order some DoorDash? Is this going to be a long night? Yeah, probably. I mean, it's Darlington, 146 laps, no walk in the park. It is going to be a long and a hard-fought night, and it starts out with a good bit of attrition.
I mean, I've got my snack already, and I kind of just knew the moment we saw last week at Dover what the race was with these cars being slippery and whatnot on the track. I said, man, I'm going to put a snack back here. I had some fruit pre-race, and I've got some peanut butter swirls. It says they're creamy peanut butter covered in smooth milk chocolate. I got these from like I guess somebody was selling chocolates, and I said, well, hell, I'll buy some. And here I am. I'm about to be snacking on these if we keep on wrecking.
You guess? You don't remember where the chocolate came from?
I remember I bought it, but I can't remember like what it was.
details.
Like, yeah, like what they were like. I know who was selling the chocolates, but the thing is well, it was like a school fundraiser thing, but you know, it was hard to equivalate it to maybe it's Girl Scouts or whatever. But who knows? I ended up getting these cool little chocolate things, and I devoured a coconut one today. So.
There you go. So you're ready to rock for the 200 miles of racing tonight. As mentioned, Rhett McBride did claim responsibility for the most recent incident, so he'll as well get an AOL penalty. However, I'm not sure the 15 is even going to make it back onto the racetrack with the damage. It's a shame because that's a real nice throwback look at a race car. And again, for you at home and for us in the booth, might take a couple of extra peaks, shall we say, at the scoring pylon to make sure we know who is who, just because so many drivers are participating in the throwback weekend vibes here at the Darlington Raceway. Sam Nieto, of course, is getting a real nice one up in front. We got the likes of Brandon Six in his normal colors, Cody Harris in his normal colors, Agnew Phillip throwing it back to the amp look of Dale Earnhardt Jr. So it's all over the board, I would say. Brandon Six will go to the outside line. No shock there, Nolan. I'd be surprised if anybody goes to the bottom at all tonight.
And that outside lane is really where you want to be. I mean, we've seen quite a few people trying to rip that wall to the point where it was even something the real-world drivers tried to do on the last lap. I believe it was Kyle Larson that attempted to make that work by wall riding, to the point where one of the RSR directors even took to Twitter shortly before this race, posting that GIF and saying, don't even think about it.
And there were as well some drivers asking, what's the limit on bouncing off of the fence? And they were reminded that your normal serving of iRacing TOS is applied. You can't simply just ride the fence all the way around. The downside of doing that, but the downside of doing that in real life is you get through one corner, car is destroyed. You could probably do it a little bit more sustained on the sim. These next-gen cars are pretty tough, so that was advised against and is something that Race Control will keep a half eye on this afternoon. 12 laps going to be behind us this time through. 6 goes so much earlier. Green flag in the air, and Sam Nieto is able to defend and hang on to P2.
I think it's my turn to talk. I was kind of confused on where we were going there, but I think that two car is really fast. And not just think, but I know it's a beautiful car. I mean, it's beautiful and fast at the same time. To a Coke Series guy, for you, Evan, to see the Coca-Cola car out there, I want to see him win just so we can, maybe you could plug it tomorrow.
Listen, I dig it. I think that's a good look at a race car. If they could make a die cast in one of them, I'd sign myself right up. That's a throwback that we've seen come to life in the sim, in real life as well. I think a couple of times during Throwback Weekend, a lot of these drivers, their painters had to get a little bit creative, right? Some of them actually put the door number back to the center like it was for the previous generation of car. Of course, you're not throwing it back to mini cars where the numbers are slid forward unless you're going way back in NASCAR history, but some drivers, trying to adapt some of those throwbacks to the modern look of these race cars and doing a really good job. Your top 10, 15, those single file themselves out. That's going to be key for getting through this race, is surviving those first 2-3 laps off of a restart.
And so far, you still got quite a few battles side by side. You just saw David Call pull clear of Tom Wetmore in the fight for 12th place in that Cube King of Wheels number 11 Toyota Camry. Just behind him in this little pack of 5, you've also got Grant Davis, Kyle Trudell, and a bit of a flashy Michael Johnson, so to speak. One car down low on the apron. That's Mike Kuczynski, fresh out of pit road, just slowing up to let this lead lap grouping through. Trudell inside of Grant Davis. This time that pass is completed into turn 3.
Yeah, Trudell's coming up through the field. I was very surprised to see him start back there like he did. I mean, there's a lot of drivers that are coming up here so far. Jaron Winemaster's up 20 so far. Harry Grindell, he's up to the 20th place position. I mean, some of the guys got lucky on the incidents that happened where a lot of drivers were taken out there. But a guy like Kyle Trudell and Tom Wetmore are driving through the field with David Cobb right in front of him.
Yeah, doing everything they can to get themselves up and into the green. That is the goal, is just use this race to work your way through. We're going to use a lot of the same terms that we've used for the last few weeks. Attrition, survive, get to the end of the race. Qualifying, is it important? Absolutely. Can you not win this race? Can you not get a good finish if you don't start in the top 10? No. There are going to be ample opportunities. Other people are going to make mistakes. People are going to wreck out of this race. You need to just keep your head screwed on tight, and there's a good chance you could be in the conversation a little bit later on. You can see a peek down there looking to the inside. Back in traffic is Kevin King's 31 boosted Chevrolet, but not backing down was Anthony DeBarro, who stands his ground. No pass going to happen there. That's the fight for 10th and 11th position right now, which is kind of at the back of this lead pack. King going to go to the inside of DeBarro again. Do they touch? They are all over each other in 3 and 4, and DeBarro toughs it out to stay right there, but great stuff in the battle for P10.
And somehow not a single smidgen of contact. I think that is the most impressive thing about that, with how precarious it can be nowadays with net code on the surface, especially on tight tracks like this one. The fact that they did not hit even once is truly something. DeBarro hangs on, and Kevin King tries. He will have to find his way another day. I do find it interesting because Kevin King typically runs the team paint scheme, right? It's usually red with very bold striking letters. Still has the striking letters, but it's in a very retro paint scheme with a much older font as well, which I do like. It's a bit of a retro take on a very modern paint scheme, you could say.
Yeah, it's a pretty good looking scheme though. At 31, it's been up here. But what I was curious while he was passing DeBarro right there, I imagine what kind of paint scheme that hamburger machine could run. You think maybe throw back and put maybe like an old Burger King scheme or something when they used to be in the sport, or maybe an In-N-Out. I don't know. Evan, talked about your side of the world, but I think I'd have preferred a Whataburger scheme on it.
Well, I'm always on the Whataburger side of the Whataburger versus In-N-Out debate, but that's also because I'm on the West Coast, so I have In-N-Out all the time. Unlike NASCAR industry folks who come to the West Coast and eat there 18 times a weekend because they can't just do it at home. I'm the same way when I go to the East Coast and have some cookout. So I'd like a cookout paint scheme. There's a lot of good throwback McDonald's paint schemes out there as well. This is one of those, as mentioned, special dates on the calendar. There's no mandate that you got to run it, right? But a lot of drivers know, hey, it's throwback weekend in the NASCAR Cup Series. It's throwback weekend for us too. I'm going to do some special schemes. We'll see more special schemes later this year at Daytona for the regular season finale for the Racing for a Cause 200. That night is when all the drivers in the field will be racing for a charity of their choice, trying to raise money for a select foundation. So that's another cool opportunity for some very special paint schemes to come out a little bit later on this year. Brandon Six, though, has led all 23 laps. You're not missing anything up front. He's half a second ahead of Sam Nieto P2. Cody Harris 2 seconds off of the pace, a little bit of damage in third, and then it's this fight for about 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th on back. A little bit of a slow car down on the apron, going to get passed by some of the faster cars off and into turn 3, but give and take, a good balance it seems at the moment.
A pretty good balance of cars so far throughout this field. You can see Ross Cato inside, collected in that first caution on the day, and now sliding back through the field as he gets put another lap down, although it's not like it does a whole lot for him. He was already 14 down, the only other car on his lap being Jeremy Miller, who is at this moment on the opposite end of the racetrack. Thought a move was going to be made between Andrew Freenosh and Kyle Trudell. The fight for 14th and 15th, you see just at the tail end of the screen, starting to shake up a little bit as the 88 car trying to make up some lost ground. I tell you what, it's been a bit of a rough run for the Battle Beaver 88. It hasn't been the best of starts for Freenosh and the defending champion, but this next-gen car really has shaken up the entire running order in a sense. We've been seeing Agnell Phillip having a great start to the races, but usually can't put forward a good ending. Sam Nieto, haven't seen Nieto run it up front too much last year. Now, fighting out for it again as Harris gets put into the wall by Agnell Phillip up the road.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting battle. You saw the 5 bounce off the wall, then you go up there and you see Phillip. He gets in the wall too. The Darlington stripe count, just from what I've seen so far, we're at like 12. There's a lot of people that's been smacking that wall, especially into 2 has kind of been when everybody wants to slide up the track. It's a heavier footed corner where you go around there, you're at a higher rate of speed. You're slowed down decently enough in turns 3 and 4 to kind of roll that bottom. You don't really want to pinch up against that wall unless you're really pressing for time, but we might have had 2 cautions right there. But man, I looked up, saw lap 29, and I was like, man, we really are we're just ticking along up here.
Working our way through, nearly 30 laps into this contest. You can see that group back there in traffic off of the back of Freenosh from 15th position on back. Some drivers with gains. Of course, Michael J. Johnson well into the green by 8 positions. Bested only by Grant Davis, who's plus 11 right behind him. And, I mean, some drivers have made big moves. We touched slightly on Harry Grindle, who is making his first start of 2022. One of the drivers that was moved to the active roster off of the wait list in this past week. Not a rookie to RSR, but his first start of the year didn't qualify, started 39th. Both he and Jaron Weinmaster have driven through the field, passing 19 race cars apiece to get inside of the top 20. So again, track position at the start, not the end-all be-all. A couple of drivers doing a good job of being patient, and that's a good example with those two.
Continuing to just run line astern, which obviously is the way to go. You're not going to make up any kind of time if you go side by side. That's really one of the hazards about a track like this. If you go side by side in these corners, you can lose so much more time than everywhere else because it's so difficult to just back out and go for the crossover. It's not really a feasible possibility. You've got really 2 options: either fight it out or just back off and let him have it and try to take it back sooner or further down the line. But obviously, if you look to fight it out, you might win that battle, but you're going to have one heck of a time trying to catch up to the next car in front of you.
I know this is off topic, but I've been paying attention to this chat right here. And Connor Horn started as a ghost. It ain't Halloween, but yeah, legit started as a ghost. Couldn't see nothing out there, so didn't get into the race. Just got in a server. Connor Horn just connected, and he's all the way back here. But he can make up some spots. He was watching the coverage and watching the wrecks and whatnot. But he's 41st right now. Has a great opportunity to get all the way up to 32nd. Or actually 30th if Jeremy Miller and Chris Edwards have issues.
We're talking about chat. Some of the drivers were talking earlier in this one as we watched the battle between Cobb and Freenosh. Mike Kaczynski, who heads up the Extreme Performance Motorsports duo. Of course, they have 2 teams competing for the team championship in this 2022 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. Teams capped at 5 drivers apiece, so they've got a XPM Whiskey and an XPM Tango. They informed Jeremy that they were going to pay for the damage from the earlier incident, and there's another one into the wall, not related. In turn number 4, it is the 34 of Brandon Bowie. He is still sliding on the front straightaway wall, losing speed. And that was after contact with him, and I believe it was Harris in a battle for 5th. Looked a lot like Joey Logano and William Byron, except it went way bad for Bowie. And now Cohan with a meatball flag for damage, being forced to give up track position and come down pit road. And we're going to see the same thing down there in turns 3 and 4 as in for service comes more drivers.
I think Cohen just missed the pit road as well, at an insult to injury, but all that started with a very big bump between Brandon Bowie getting into the likes of Cody Harris. That stacked him up, and Nick Cohan was the driver that ran into the back of Brandon Bowie, and that's what caused Cohen to get his meatball flag. Kevin King also got collected. What doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, though, is why Bowie hasn't been given a meatball flag. Because Bowie got front-end damage from hitting Harris, then side-to-side damage from hitting the wall not once, twice, but 3 different times. Actually make it 4 now that I've just counted it out. On just the right side, left side from getting hit by Nick Cohen, rear-end damage from getting hit by Kevin King. But yet Cohen's got a black flag for a small little ding on the right front. That it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, that's the challenges that Darlington has. I've seen on, obviously we run off the official NASCAR schedule, and iRacing does the same. I got on Twitter that last night, and everybody was whining and complaining because somebody got a penalty in another league for wall riding, or what they said. Man, you can't touch the wall here. If you touch the wall here, you ain't just doing damage to yourself. You're doing damage to the person behind you because they're not going to check up in time. They're gonna hit you in the butt, and it's going to be a whole lot of mess going on around here. So, I don't know. I love this track. I wish it never changed. I honestly wish, if anything, that they would make this track tougher. They'd go out there and lower the track just a little bit and just make it a little flatter up on the high side, so you really got to go in the corner. Can't really wall ride, like you said. Just dip back down just about a half inch, and I think it'll change the complexion of this race, and a lot more people would be probably smacking that wall harder than what they already do.
Yeah, there would be no physical way for us to keep track of all of the Darlington stripes, as you call them, just because I'm sure there's one happening every single lap. Some are harder than others. Not every Darlington stripe's going to slow you down or cause you damage. Not every stripe's going to get you a meatball flag or a black flag for damage repairs required. But certainly you don't want to keep knocking the fence down all night long, because it will add up over the course of more than 100 laps of racing here tonight at Darlington, of which 107 still left to go on the scoring pylon this time. Andrew Freenosh, you were taking a look there, trying to get underneath Anthony DeBarro, couldn't do so. They single file out, and this group back here wants to catch up. David Cobb in 12th, Trudell behind him. They all want to catch back up to that pack inside of the top 10. And by the way, Grindle continues to make moves. He is flying in that blue and yellow. Number 70 all the way up now to 16th position from 39th on the grid, is in the middle of that backpack. They're trying to catch up to these guys, where Kevin King leads a group of 7 from position 5 through 11.
Out of the 41 cars that have started this race, you've only got 25 currently on the lead lap, which is just insane considering we've still got over 100 laps of racing left to go. Really goes to show just how big of an effect pace and damage can have at a track like Darlington. You're currently watching the number 6 car of Thomas George and Michael Johnson fighting for 14th and 15th place. That's side by side. Johnson up top, George on the bottom. The Sirius XM Mustang, and along with Valvoline on the hood, going to take it into turn 1. And I have a feeling there, Terry, that Michael Johnson kind of gave that one up.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to give it up right there. You see that he was down on the bottom. The 6 car had the run. George really was able to send it in the corner. But Evan, I like to consider myself a man of the people, and I'm watching this chat too. Go back here. Let's look at the guy sitting in 16th, Mr. Grindell. Oh, Harry G, man. He's got a fan club tonight. They're out there cheering him on from wherever he's from. I'm not very good with flags, but he's putting them on him. Got a lot of people tuning in. That number 70 looks real good too.
When we talk about some of the international flavor in this series, that as mentioned, Harry making his first start of the season, the driver for Team Kamikaze out of Manchester, the United Kingdom. So from overseas, Harry's joining us tonight, and you can see that beautiful throwback paint scheme on his car. Not necessarily a NASCAR throwback, but he was posting some pictures of what his paint scheme was based on in the Discord chat a little bit earlier. That was what a lot of drivers are doing throughout the week. You can see top of your screen there a replay of that move by Freenosh going off it into turn number 1. Things got checked up. He swung down to the bottom, and that's how that position got exchanged. Andrew Freenosh is inside of the top 10 for the first time this evening. Again, that is noteworthy because Freenosh caused an incident on lap 2, got an end of the longest line. The penalty was all the way at the rear of this field of 41 cars, Nolan, and now 45 laps in, he has driven the Battle Beaver Ford Mustang to the top 10. I'd be sweating if I'm that 5 of Joseph Tice, if I'm that 28 of Cody Harris directly in front of him, because your defending race winner here is cooking, and he's got a thing with the backing up race wins. just a week ago took home the checkered flag at Dover. That was his 3rd straight win at the Monster Mile. Well, trying to repeat again here, too, at Darlington.
Freenosh is one of those drivers that is known to really want to defend race wins at difficult venues. It was Dover last week, and now it's the track too tough to tame. You saw Cody Harris suddenly slow up on the bottom side. He's going to let Joseph Tice clear from the outside. And that was because Cody Harris had to lift off to avoid running into the wall on the back straightaway just out of turn 2. Trying to battle back, though, inside of 3 and 4. Can't get there. Tice hangs on. Here comes Freenosh with the head of steam to the inside. Cody Harris hanging on. Freenosh pushing up, forcing Harris further and further up to the marbles. They almost bang doors, but they keep it steady. Harris once again has to lift. Freenosh goes through. So does DeBarro. So does Wetmore. But now DeBarro wants to take the battle to the 88.
Yeah, that start right there with Harris having to back out of the throttle, that's a huge sign that this is a momentum racetrack, just like we saw last week at Dover. The moment you start to lift here and you have to let out of it more than you have to, the people on the bottom are really going to make it work. And you saw man, listen to me. I forgot what I was saying. DeBarro, Wetmore, and Freenosh got up there and made the pass happen. And you take Harris all the way back to the 11th place position. But the 88 having to start at the tail end of the longest line there. What an impressive run back through this field. I mean, up to 8th. And I'm almost positive that these drivers heard that I wanted a snack. And now they're green flag racing.
Well, they're just trying to accommodate everybody tuning in and joining us here on this Monday night on RaceSpotTV. And here comes Freenosh down to the inside, trying to make the move on Joseph Tice. Not quite clear, but he'll swing to the inside to make the pass. And DeBarro wants to double up. He also goes underneath Tice. Tice going to get a run off of the corner, but nothing to match it. Now here comes Wetmore. He'll give a shot to the 27, pushes DeBarro clear. Wetmore through as well, and Joseph Tice, after starting this race 7th, loses 3 spots in 1 lap and finds himself down in P10. And Freenosh's march towards the front continues as he is now all the way up to P7. Slow car on the apron. That was Mike Kaczynski headed to pit road. You saw in the foreground of the shot there, Kaczynski pitting in the 30 car.
The real big hazard when it comes to being side by side in these fierce battles, what that can really kind of get really tight together, like we saw Joseph Tice fighting it out with Freenosh, is the fact that once you get past once, it opens up the door for you to get freight train, which is why drivers can fight so hard to keep it. As you see Michael Johnson trying to keep the spot from Matt Danton, it's not going to happen. Esports Chevrolet going to be falling out of line, and he'll save himself from losing a spot thanks to the likes of Connor Horn, who you mentioned before is several laps down, Terry, after coming in late after having some technical difficulties to start his race off. Michael Johnson, though, does not want to battle this one out with the likes of Connor Horn, who is on fresher tires than every single driver in this field. Thomas George back to the inside of Trudell, trying to out-drag the number 7 car down into turn number 1 for 13th.
Yeah, this has been where the battle's been. Brandon Six has pulled away from Sam Nieto almost by 2 seconds there. And Agnell Phillips right there on the back bumper of Nieto. But not a whole lot of battling going on right here in the top 3, as it is a breakaway all the way back to Lariah in 4th. You look back here, further on back in the pack with David Cobb. Great run so far for David Cobb, up to 12th place. And while you would say, oh, 12th place really isn't that good of a run, well, it's pretty darn good considering where he started there. So up 14 positions now. It's been incredible to see some of these drivers come through this field the way they have.
And David DeGauve is looking for a good showing here tonight as well. He'll stay in front of the 6 of Thomas George, who just got underneath him, but Cobb is coming off of a 22nd place finish at Dover and a 33rd place finish at Talladega. That killed a streak of 3 top 15s in the previous 4 weeks before these past couple of races. So he's looking to bounce back. A fringe driver in terms of the championship, 24th in the standings coming into tonight. Again, you need to be top 16 if you want to make it to the postseason here, and it's even a little bit more difficult than that because you got the likes of Danson and Everhart outside of the top 16 in normal points, but still with the race win aiding them. That's kind of a bit of a side story as well. Daniel Everhart, of course, not in the field here this afternoon, serving his last suspension for an incident a couple of weeks ago. His race win's only going to be eligible if he could maintain a top certain standing in the championship, right? You need to be at least, say 20th or 25th in the standings for your win to count. He's going to be in the deep 30s just because he's missing some weeks. So even though Daniel's going to race win, he's going to have to race hard for the rest of the year to get himself to that minimum threshold for that race win to count towards the postseason. As already, guys, blink of an eye, past 50 laps in here from the track. Too tough to tame. Good rhythm. 21 cars of the 41 who started still on the lead lap.
Thing about Darlington, the laps can really fly by quickly. I mean, people see 146 laps on the docket at a track like Darlington, and some of them think, oh, this is going to be a really long race. It's not really a difficult thing to mistake this track for being 1.3 miles as opposed to 1.5, though. That's why the laps here just seem to fly by. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't even realize this track was only 1.3 miles until a couple of years ago, despite having watched NASCAR for about 5 years previously. Take a look at a replay on the screens. This is with Agnell Phillip having a moment out of turn number 4. That was a bit of a close call. Phillip has already had a rocky start to the season, Terry, and would definitely not like to start off this Darlington race like that either.
Yeah, and had just a dismal finish. I mean, granted, he finished up front, but just a heartbreaking end to last week at Dover to lead all those laps, be so good up front, have an issue on pit lane. In the blink of an eye, it was gone. It feels like just a blink of an eye, the lead's gone. It's 0.8 of a second. Sam Nieto has caught Brandon 6, and it's under a second for the top 3 here. As Phillip might have tagged the wall, but the top 3 are going to be in a blanket here soon. Now, granted, it's because the leader, Brandon 6, has caught some lap traffic, but hey, you throw some lap traffic in front of them, it might be showtime.
Yeah, they are all, as you mentioned, within about 1.2 seconds of each other. Last time around, the fastest of the trio was Sam Nieto in second. Now, Brandon 6 has led every single lap tonight. Of course, if you're just joining us, that is despite the fact that Sam Nieto qualified on pole. He did not like the inside of the front row. He tried to get out of it, had to start there for the initial green, and lost the lead before we even got to turn 1. So Brandon 6 has been on cruise control, but even without that lap traffic, that's going to take a little bit of time to get through. He, Nieto, Phillip, not all that off on time, so I think it's a pretty good 3-way battle for the race lead that we're going to be watching all night long. Of course, you can monitor those intervals top left of your screen on the SK Sim Racing leaderboard. Looks like the battle might be Phillip and Nieto before Brandon 6 gets into the party. We'll see, but that 94 amp energy machine is really closing in. I'd say it's about 2.5 car lengths, now 2 to the back bumper of Sam Nieto in that fight for second.
This kind of reminds me of that race at New Hampshire. You had a caution or two early on from last year, and then the race went caution free from there. And at this rate, it's looking like we're going to be on track for a very similar trend here tonight from the Darlington Raceway. On board with Agnell Phillip. And do my eyes deceive me here, Terry, or is that car representing the likes of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s old paint scheme back from, I believe, that's from 2011?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. That Amp Energy machine was one of my favorite Dale Jr. cars. Granted, I am a big Dale Jr. fan. I still got my Amp Energy hat back here behind me. Yeah, there it is. It's not on camera, but yeah, I gotta stop doing that. I keep talking to myself on this thing. I keep forgetting that I'm calling a race. But yeah, no, that's cool. It's one of the cool schemes, and you got Amp scheme over here versus the Coke scheme. But what is ASP? Is that what's on the side of that?
And not only that, but A51 Pro on the side, as opposed to a certain energy drink. And of course, instead of the National Guard, I believe there's a secondary banner related to the A51 Pro team on the back deck lid as well. So I kind of like that, though. There's a lot of drivers out there that are using that exact same thing. You get them, going off these old paint schemes, but they replace the traditional logos with stuff from their own team. It's pretty creative in a way.
And a side note, I just want to say that I love Amp Energy. It was always my go-to road tripping, and you can't really find it these days as much as you used to. I think the only flavor that's still out there is the original citrus. You can buy it on like Amazon, but you really don't find it in the grocery store or the gas station much. But Amp Energy was always my road trip go-to energy drink. Why? Because it was a NASCAR sponsor. So there you go. Funny how that works. That's why it's a Coca-Cola household here. Looking up to the Coca-Cola Ford as we see this battle for first, second, and third all come down on top of each other. They have caught Brandon Six, and now there's traffic up the road. Six a little bit timid into the corner, and Sam Nieto might be tempted to make a move here before they catch the lap traffic up the road. They're going to have to get around Jeremy Miller, Kyle Kamer, and others, so lap traffic may play a factor in this three-way battle for the race lead.
Would have been the first time lap traffic played a factor in this fight from the lead, and there's the move. Sam Nieto making the lunge on Brandon Six, and Sam Nieto to the point. Washes up in front of Brandon Six in turn 4, but Six can't fight back. Agno Phillip left to go after Six now for second place. Sam Nieto already started to build a gap, already putting about 4 car lengths between himself and Six, and that gap, Terry, is only growing.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing here is see Sam able to stretch it on old tires. We have not pitted. And I know that seems like a crazy thing out there, but they still haven't come down pit lane. The only one, Thomas George, come down on lap 4, but it was involved in the incident. A couple others have come down, but these lead cars, they're still out here on the racetrack on the initial tires that they put on, that they had on from the start. Now, granted, they're going to have to pit eventually in this race, but it's just interesting to see who can manage the tires on the long run, and we're halfway through this race. I mean, we've been over here talking about AMP, and I got these peanut butter swirl things, ice cold rowdy energy over here to my right. It's a good time, man. It's a good time on Monday nights.
It is a good time, and it's almost pit stop time as we see up front with the race leaders. Down and around the traffic goes Sam Nieto. Agno Phillip also following through, and Brandon Six sliding down to third, still falling off. So you talk about conserving the tires on the long run. Six led the first 67 laps of this race, but he is clearly on the back foot now, anywhere from 3 to 6 tenths slower than the Nieto and Phillip duo, who are also just there, able to get all the way around Kyle Trudell. Now, the trick here for the 7 is the 7's on fresh tires, right? He has pitted some cars towards the rear half. Kaczynski, Kalis, Morano, Cohan, some other names towards the rear, down and onto the pit lane. But as we close in on halfway next time by, we're going to see more stops. So that 7 and Trudell's trying to be nice here, find a good time, and look at that. When he got to the bottom, how easily he was able to clear the race leaders. But that's Trudell just trying to be a good sportsman, not interfere in the battle for the race lead. He is giving up a little bit of time, though, in the long game, but assuming that everybody's able to keep their heads pointed the right direction, looking at a one-stop race with that service coming up anytime, windows open.
a very common strategy nowadays when it comes to RSR competition is to see guys going for the one-stop. The two-stop strategy is, for all intents and purposes, been completely phased out in the last couple of seasons or so, and I think that's just due in part to how easy it is now to stretch a run to halfway. And I mean, why not? You can go to halfway. I mean, why bother coming in for the two-stop strategy unless tires are really that bad? But that's the thing about these Gen 7 cars. They just do not wear all that much, and I know that one of the easy fixes when it comes to trying to make that work, to get more pit stops in for fuel at the very least, would be, well, quite simply to restrict the fuel limitations a little bit more. But of course, you do that, you eliminate the tire game as well, and that is, it kind of screws over the people that are great at saving tires, because yeah, they can save tires and be a little bit longer the short run, but they can't ever put that to use in the long run because, well, there is no long run anymore.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting debate for you know, people to sit around the admins and whatnot of the league and just kind of put their heads together on, well, we can go 75, 80, 90 laps out here on a tank of fuel. But, you know, to Nolan's point, it brings up a whole lot of strategy. I mean, you see some of these drivers back here really struggling and fighting this car. You got Brandon 6 on pit lane right now. That's the first big domino to fall. But these drivers are really having a handful right now, just trying to push that fuel limit all the way to the halfway point. So this is it. This is the last pit stop, unless obviously a caution comes out, and then, well, you'd be flat. Hell, you'd be me if you didn't put tires on it. Just dumb.
And just as you say that, they're all over the radio. Tice started it saying he is going to be down pit road. Wetmore is down this time. Looks like Benazzi Major down as well. Your top riders stay out. 6, Harris, Davis, Chambliss, Windmaster, Major, all down at pit road. You have to assume Agnew Phillip now is in. That's a big decision for him because he gets down before Sam Nieto. But Brandon 6 was already on the pit lane. I wonder if we're going to see an undercut here. We have seen a little bit shy, Nolan, of 2 seconds of fall off, so pitting a lap or 2 sooner could give you the upper hand as you see these drivers blend back out onto the racetrack. And there goes the 94 of Agnew Phillip. Going to try to hope that he blends in front of this guy. Your race leader, Sam Nieto, still not looking to pit road. He stays up on the racing surface.
So 8 cars left on the lead lap. Thomas George just now entered pit road. You've now got just 5 at the line. Nieto, Freenach, Silver, Danson, and Grindel all have yet to come into pit road. Sam Nieto's made the call. He will be pitted in this time by. So race leader going to be into pit road just as cars are blending out onto the racetrack. That's risky business, but it looks like he'll find a perfect hole to get down and into pit road. Andrew Freenach, I believe, is yet to stop. So is Danson, Grindel. Nick Silver just pitted this time by. He is also down and in for service. Sam Nieto looks like he'll be giving up the race lead. Freenach in a pit road himself, while Matt Danson will stay out on the racetrack to get those bonus points for leading the lap at Darlington.
Well, and you look at the pit stop thing right there. Obviously, Grindel, Danson, they've come down once or twice, but they also came down under the caution flags that was there. But what a story it would be, man. Like I said, the biggest fan club out there is for that 70. They probably have a party in the UK if he messes around and wins this race. Matt Danson takes this lead. This is going to be an interesting strategy because these drivers are on some old tires. You get a caution here, you've trapped half the field a lap down, if not more. You know, it's a whole lot that could happen here. This could be fun.
Hearing a spin for Joseph Tice on the cold tires. No yellow, though. We stay green. Harry Grindel does pit now from the number 2 position. That's going to leave only Matt Danson, Chris Rabel, Kyle Kamer, and I believe Shane Ewing, who's on the pit lane now, as the only drivers who still need to come down pit road to get into the window to the end of the race. Here's a look at the 5 car into 1. A little bit sideways. I'll tell you what, that is a lot better job of locking it down down than what we saw early in this race with that huge little bobble that turned into a wreck for Rick McBride, but he got sideways and overcorrected. So a good job for Joseph Tice to wrangle that race car in. Going to lose a little bit of time, though, in that exchange. So the big thing was the 2-car going to blend out in front or behind Agnell Phillip? And Agnell Phillip was able to successfully complete the undercut. He pitted 3 laps earlier than Sam Nieto did. He is now 4 seconds ahead of him and will assume the race lead. But Matt Dansett comes down to the pit lane. Dansett over the radio saying he is going to be down this time. So expect him to yield the race lead. Agnell Phillip from some 20 seconds behind will assume the top spot as you see the treacherous entry that is pit road here at Darlington Raceway. Locking it up. Watch the barrels. He's able to get it down to 45 miles an hour in time. And Agnell Phillip in 3 and 4 will go back to the race lead. Now the question is, Phillip was able to leapfrog Sam Nieto, but can he hold off Sam Nieto now over the course of the next 63 laps?
So Dansett is into the lane. Phillip cycles through to the race lead. And you mentioned, of course, that Sam Nieto was a good bit behind Agnell Phillip. And the 4 seconds might not seem like a lot on paper. When you actually look at it on track, Sam Nieto is at the moment about 2/3 of a straightaway behind Agnell Phillip, which is a huge gap. That is enough to fit. If you had all the cars line astern, that would put Sam Nieto in first. And, well, sorry, Phillip would be in first.
I guess it is my turn again. I'm still very confused here. Agnell Phillip, Evan, we talked about last week, obviously put the first part of the race together, but didn't get the second half, had an incident there. And out of nowhere, there comes, the driver to steal the win. Freenodge takes it. But then now Phillip ran third all race long. Second half of the race, hey, windows open, just so happens, pit road. So, Lady Luck, maybe here at the Lady in Black, strike it up to get him.
Interesting enough, right? He started on pole for that race. He was the dominant car early. Can he be the dominant car late in this one, or will a long run bite him, right? You might think 3 laps ain't a big difference on tires, right? The 3-lap earlier pit stop for him is why he was able to get ahead of Nieto, but therefore it does mean Sam Nieto has better tires than he does at the moment. Nieto about 1/10 of a second better per lap, but he's still 4 seconds behind. 3.7, 3.6. You see it there on the SK Sim Racing leaderboard. So Agnell Phillip does have a really good chance here to try to learn from last week, better the race car in the long run, protect the tires, and get to the end and go to victory lane. Even though I'm sure he wanted to win that race, that runner-up finish was huge for him. After bouncing back from a couple of rough weeks, of course, a race winner earlier in the season from the LA Coliseum preseason racing. Well, looking to get one done here in the regular season and lock himself into the postseason, dealing with a lot of traffic. That's going to be the theme now, right? There's a lot of cars still in this race, but there's only 18 of them on the lead lap. There's a lot of drivers 1 lap down, a lot of drivers 2 laps down that your race leaders are going to be constantly dealing with, and I think that's where those pucker moments are going to come from, because unless somebody gets way out of your way or you're way quicker than them, there really isn't anywhere easy to pass here at Darlington.
There really is no easy place to pass. It's difficult enough to just drive the track, let alone actually try to race the track as well, and everybody else on said track. It kind of puts you in a bad spot, as you can see Kyle Kamer in a bad spot right now. He's holding up the fight 15th and 16th place as Sean Casto and Jared Wyman are both blitzed around him. Matt Dansett eager to find a way through as well. You've also got Brian Chamberlain, Munati Major, and Brandon Bowie looking to breathe down Kamer's neck as well while all of this is going on. This is a huge gaggle of cars, some on the same lap, some laps down, but more importantly, both different cars that are on different laps all involved in battle for positions with each other. It's a really big question then at a track this tight. How desperate are you to want to fight for these positions that you're going to hold up cars that are potentially a lap ahead of you?
Yeah, I tell you, I don't want to hold nobody up here at a place like this. It's a good way to get wrecked. I've been wrecked in every which way this week, and my iRating has taken an absolute beating because of it. And you know what? You kind of want to put yourself in a position here that, well, you know you can only fall so far because there's not a whole lot of cars on the lead lap. And you also know that if you continuously hold somebody up, their temper's going to get real hot, and they're going to push you off the racetrack. But looking here at this 52, it reminds me of the old CRL car. You remember that little stuff you spray on your shower, wipe the mildew and the mold and stuff off? That's an old kickback right there. That's like early 2000s.
One thing I always notice is anytime you go to a throwback car, they're always so much more colorful, right, than some of the race cars we have now. And don't get me wrong, we get a lot of nice colors on race cars these days, but it just seems like colors that pop aren't as prevalent, and I think we need to bring back bright and beautiful race cars, and that's what you're seeing on the 52 of Sean DeCastro. I know we passed the halfway point during that cycle of pit stops, but let's recap where everybody has shook out and take a look at our SK Sim Racing midway race breakdown with 54 laps to go in Darlington, South Carolina. So Agno Phillip leads this race. He is some 2.9 seconds ahead of Sam Nieto in second. Brandon Six was the dominant car tonight, leading the opening 67 laps of it all. He is down in third. Michael Araya is in fourth position ahead of Kevin King in fifth. Andrew Freenosh, who took an EOL early in this race, and the defending race winners up to P6 ahead of Kyle Trudell in seventh. Tom Wetmore is in eighth. Nick Silver is ninth, and Michael Johnson rounds out our top 10, Nolan.
And that will then put Cody Harris in 11th place with Anthony DeBarro down in 12th. Thomas George is sitting 13th. Matt Danton started 36th. He's now up to 14th place. David Call was in 15th. Jared Wymister is 16th. Sean Cassa and Brian Chambliss are the last cars on the lead lap in 17th and 18th place, with Harry Grindell and Joseph Tice in 19th and 20th, Terry.
Yeah, you got Eric Stanford 21st, Matasti Major 22nd, Chris Rabel, Kyle Kammer, Grant Davis, Braden Whitaker, Brandon Bowie in the 34th, Shane Ewing, who had a connection issue and then come back, Tim Johnson and Ross Cato around that top 30.
And continuing on through, these are the drivers who are way down. Down 15 for Jeremy Miller in 31st, 32nd, minus 16, William Schmidt. Connor Horn, the late entry, 33 laps down, but 33rd. He has passed some 8 other cars, despite missing the start of the race just because they've wrecked out of it. The drivers out of the race include Rhett McBride and Mike Kuczynski, 34th and 35th, Sean Kalist, Tom Morano, Nick Cohan, Bradley Burke, Chris Edwards, and Dylan Parker. So look top to bottom at your 41 car field here from Darlington. That look was brought to you by our friends at SK Sim Racing. SK Sim Racing is an iRacing team and channel with an emphasis on reaching those new to the oval sim racing world. You can find them online a couple of ways. First, facebook.com/SKSimRacing, on Twitter at SKSimRacing1, and you can race with the Champions Race by visiting sksimgear.com. Really heavy traffic now that everybody's dealing with. You're looking at a battle for a lead lap position. Cody Harris and Michael Johnson squaring off. That one for 11th and 12th. Up the road, a bit of a trio sees Kyle Trudell, Tom Wetmore, Nick Silver fighting for 7, 8, and 9. But other than that, not a ton happening. Most drivers seemingly have raced their way into a bubble that a belt represents the pace they have.
It's always nice when cars just separate into these little bubbles. You can pretty well tell where everybody is on the racetrack, despite over half the field being a lap down. There will be 46 laps to go at the line this time by for race leader Agnel Phillip, which should make it a bit of an interesting final run here as we get set ourselves up for the final runs in tonight's race. There you see Kyle Trudell trying to fight back, or might have just got a bit squirrely out of turn 4. Trying to run down Nick Silver and Tom Wetmore lost 2 spots in just 1 lap. Silver is up in 8th place now, with Tom Wetmore up into 7th place in his Tube Tech Chevrolet.
This has been a very, I would say, entertaining race, because there's not a lot going on the track, but there's a lot going on strategy-wise, and there's also a lot going on when it comes to just gamesmanship. I mean, you see Phillip came down pitted before Nieto. Nieto starting to come back. Brandon Six just fell off after he got passed for the lead. You look back here with Nick Silver sitting in 8th place, had a not so great, start, and kind of sit in one little spot, sitting here comfortably, I would say, in the top 10, but not a whole lot behind him. DeBarro's working through the field. It's just a lot of comers and goers so far, but the top 3's just been the same. And oh yeah, by the way, Freenage is, all the way up to 5th after having an EOL early on that second caution.
Yeah, all Andrew needs is a yellow, right? He last lap put down a 30.603. That was faster than all 4 cars in front of him. The problem was not passing the race cars. He's able to do that. The problem for him has been the time needed, right? Even though he's at 5th, he is more than 11 seconds off of the race leader. And you can see the intervals on your screen. That's about a second behind Lariah. Lariah is about 3 seconds behind 6. So on and so forth, right? So Andrew Freenage has the pace to be competitive. No surprise, given his recent success here at the track Too Tough to Tame. But that EOL really set him back, in the long green flag run not working in his favor. It has been working for Agno Phillip, although we did mention Sam Nieto pitted later, has a little bit better tires. You're looking at Agno Phillip now, just getting by some lap traffic. He's about to catch up to Jaron Winemaster and David Kolb to deal with some more traffic. So there's going to be a lot of it on the horizon. And his advantage over Sam Nieto is below 2 seconds. So yeah, that tire difference is going to get less and less noticeable deeper you get into a run, right? 3 laps of tire difference is more noticeable on a 10-lap run than it is 60 laps into a run. But Sam Nieto's close enough where Agno Phillip, I think, is going to feel the pressure to try to execute these passes on the lapped cars quickly. And when you're rushing lapped cars at Darlington, you can always find yourself in a tricky spot. Look at all those cars up the road from your race leader.
Every one of those cars that's up the road is going to be filling your race leader, Agno Phillip, with a little bit more nervousness. How many times have we seen Agno Phillip up in the race lead and be costed the win either by his own mistake or by other people's mistakes so far this season? Phillip trying to make this win one to remember, and really the starting point to kick off his 2022 campaign. Gets a bit squirrely though, out of the final corner, down the front straightaway. Phillip still holding strong with the race lead, now a 2.5 seconds clear of Sam Nieto. That's the one good thing about all this lap traffic, right, Terry? Every lap car that Phillip puts between himself and Nieto is one more that Nieto's going to have to work around to get back to him.
Well, unless you do what the car behind Phillip did and bounce the sucker off the wall, and you're kind of setting it up for failure there, because he's one less car for Nieto to pass. But you see them; they're in the same shot together. They dang near cross the start-finish line right on top of one another. It's under 1 second. You're coming up more right now. You got Winemaster right in front of him, so there's a lot that can happen over these next couple laps. He's starting to battle guys that are not, a lap down, so they don't have to move out of the way. They really can fight to do what they got to do to stay here. There's no sense in just rolling over and taking it, and right now it doesn't look like that they're going to.
And that's going to be the fun part to watch. Is this one likely to go all the way to the wire? 38 laps left to go the last time by. Phillip now under Winemaster, who sits in 15th position. Jaron's not going to pull all the way out of the way, but he's also not going to make life challenging for Agno Phillip. Once Agno got underneath him, he let him go. It's worth noting, every lapped car that Agno Phillip gets by, Sam Nieto is going to have to deal with as well, but that gap now 1.1 second between your race leader and the driver in second. So Nieto closer with every waking lap. You can see he does have traffic in his own right, and he's going to try to make a move right now on Sean Casto to the inside. Casto acknowledged it on the radio. 52 is going to lift a little bit earlier into the corner. Nieto can pull up into the racing line. He is now clear. Going to cost him some time in the process, but at this moment there is only one lapped car between first and second, and it's Winemaster. So the way that this is closed it in, I think Sam Niello is going to have a real look at this thing, but with the pace Agnew Phillip has consistently, he can't make mistakes, can't bobble, can't fumble. He's going to have to stay on the wheel throughout. It is a battle for fourth brewing. On the bottom of your screen, Andrew Freenage has caught Michael Araya in the fight for fourth.
So the battle for fourth starting to pick on up through turns 3 and 4 and down onto the front straightaway. Freenage trying to put himself one step closer to a podium. But I think it would be a bit of an ask for Freenage to make the run on Brandon 6 for third as well and a podium, because he would still be 3.5 seconds plus down the road. Laraya bobbles out of 2. Here comes the 88 car to the inside. Goes 3 wide with Bradley Burke, who went down onto the apron just to let Freenage through. Laraya, though, not giving this one up easily, fighting it out with Freenage out of 4 onto the front straightaway. The 88 car still side by side. Laraya lifts early to let Freenage take it into turn 1.
Yeah, he realized that Freenage was much faster, especially on entry speed in general. I mean, you see the corner exit and the rotation that he's really getting through the center. Last lap by, I mean, Freenage put a 31.3 down, but he was also behind behind Laraya. When Laraya ran a 31.4, obviously you can't go much faster. He comes across the line here. You know, battling was still very fast, was faster than Sam Nieto on that one. But Agnew Phillip is out here just putting it on him. He's under 31 seconds with a 30.8. So starting to stretch that lead back out on Sam in the 2. We're coming down to, I mean, close to 20 to go. So it's almost the bank's almost open. It's trying to see what you got.
Yeah, at this pace, you only got about 15 minutes left on the stopwatch to complete the 31.5 laps still to go in this Southern 200. Of course, a couple of yellow flags early in this one. Freenage on lap 2, McBride on lap 8, but a green flag pit cycle in the middle. Are there more surprises in store still? Lucky number 13. 13 cars are still on the lead lap in this race. It's likely to end, I would guess, with 11 on the lead lap by the time this one's done. And there's another good look at your 2008 Dale Earnhardt Jr. throwback paint scheme on the A51 Pro Chevrolet Camaro of Agnew Phillip. He has led 33 laps in this race. There are only 30 left, so he will not be able to pass Brandon 6 for the most laps led. 6 led the first 67 laps of this race. That number is insurmountable. So Brandon 6, who has kind of quietly slipped out of the battle for the race win here in the second half after he really struggled late on the long run in that first stint, is just chilling on his own in third. He has secured the bonus point for the most laps led tonight and a bonus point for a lap led. So he's got the 2 bonus points locked up. Agnew Phillip can't get max points tonight, but he can still go for race winning points unless that man right there, Sam Nieto, has something to say about it. And now he's got a real good look up to the race leader. There is no interference. The next car in line is the race leader, but ahead of the leader, 3 more lapped traffic cars that Agnew Phillip's going to have to find a way by.
Time is really starting to run out for Sam Nieto if he wants to close up to the likes of Agnew Phillip, and clipping the wall like that is not how you're going to get it done. Grant Davis pulls aside, lets race leader Phillip through. We'll have to wait and see if he will offer Sam Nieto the same courtesy here. Down the back straightaway, it looks like he will. Pulls it off to the inside and lets Nieto take it. So Phillip still with the race lead, but now it has started to shrink. It's just over a second, and if he catches much more lap traffic here, Terry, I think Phillip could be in trouble.
Yeah, this could be a big opportunity for the race leader to really establish what he's got. I mean, Agnell Phillip's been running the wall. Been getting closer and closer each lap, but you see him catching the 6. That's Thomas George. Got David Kolb right there, too. Those two drivers are not just going to roll over and let this 94 machine, you know, cruise to victory lane. It hasn't been easy for Phillip the entire season to cross that 94 into victory lane, and why would tonight be any different? Had the struggles last week, had the struggles in Bristol, had a ton of issues where he's been a fast driver, but just can't get lucky. Well, you're at a track that's not so giving and not so nice for luck, as he almost smacks the wall there coming off of 2, which has been the trouble spot so far in this race. Can't make it easy, and I'm sure that George and that's Harris, they're not going to make it easy on him either.
And another thing to keep in mind, of course, you know, we talk about the challenges of passing cars. This is a tough racetrack to lap on your own. A self-inflicted error, especially when you feel the pressure of needing to be so perfect late in a race like this, could be the difference maker, with somebody pushing it a little bit too far and getting themselves a Darlington stripe and then some. We've seen many drivers get into the wall today, survive. Others, the damage has been significant enough that has forced them to pit road for repairs. That would be devastating at this point in the race. Now with 122 laps down and 24 laps to go, Agnell Phillip has been able to get around Thomas George. Next up on the docket, Cody Harris, who is the 12th placed car in the running order, and when he gets by him, it'll leave us with those 11 drivers on the lead lap that I think this race may end with. Next driver he would have to deal with Kyle Trudell, who is 4 more seconds up the road at 11th spot. And you can see no rush for Agnell Phillip, because yeah, when he makes a pass at a lapped car, 6 and Nieto, they both close the gap a little bit. But then when those two cars, Nolan, have to pass those drivers, the gap goes back, right? You're always going to lose time on an overtake unless the person you're passing pulls to the apron. Because if you're going low, you're deviating from your line. So it's all a push and pull. You're going to lose time when you make the passes. You're going to gain time when they have to make the passes. Agnell Phillip, I think, is comfortable with where Sam Nieto's gap is at the moment, because the rate into which Nieto's been closing has slowed significantly as Phillip goes underneath, but not rolling over is the 28 car. Look at this.
To the inside, and Phillip goes through. Cody Harris, though, was not really wanting to make that all that easy for him. But now Phillip has lapped all the way up to 12th place. And to kind of put that into consideration, that was the car that started in 3rd as well. Does have damage, yes, but started in 3rd nonetheless. Still on board with Nieto, who is now approaching the likes of Thomas George and Cody Harris. That gap now under a second, continuing to close. I think Nieto just has better long-run pace. And if Phillip wants to stay out in front, I think he's going to need some more lap traffic to get in the way here.
I just want to jump in, Terry, and say that when they went side by side there, when Agnell Phillip couldn't clear that 28 of Harris, he lost 0.4 of a second that lap alone.
Yeah, and it also doesn't make it. You know what? And I'm going to say this, and it might be a little out of place, but if I'm Agnell Phillip and you're getting raced like that by a car going a lap down, but then the moment they see the second place driver right there, they come over the radio and say, "Hey, I'm going to move." Right? That's got to get under your skin. That's got to make you hot. That would frustrate the mess out of me if somebody raced me like that to stay on the lead lap, knowing that they're under power, and then just rolls over for the guy in second who's chasing me down for a race win. This is too competitive of a league. You see these drivers out here every single week. They're putting it all on the line in practice. They're hanging this thing sideways in qualifying. They come in here in the race and they're inches from the wall to find every bit of speed. And there it is again on the back straightaway. He pulls over. Harris pulls over and lets Nieto go. And now Nieto, he's under a second. Here he comes. He's going to come challenge Phillip for the lead.
Funny how that works. It was a challenge, but Agnew Phillip went through, but then with Cody Harris, who saw Sam Nieto catch up, looked pretty easy on the pass. So I'm sure Nieto appreciates that. Those are not team cars. Sam Nieto driving for Flat Out Motorsports. And Cody Harris unaffiliated with the team, but felt like, hey, maybe I pushed my luck a little bit there. I don't want to miss anybody else's race up. Battle for 8th position on the bottom of your screen. Tom Wetmore in the 57 has been reeled in by Anthony DeBarro. DeBarro got there about 4 laps ago. Hasn't been able to get enough of a run to pass him, and you can even see Wetmore blocking a little bit, trying to make it as difficult as possible for the 27. DeBarro's going to get underneath him, though, so we'll fight side by side for 8th and 9th. Wetmore shakes it off, leads off of the corner, as they both are going to have to get around the lapped car of Anansi Major, who sits in P21 right in front of them.
So battle for first place, top of the screen. The battle for 8th on the bottom of your screens. And right now, that battle for 8th place is definitely the closer, I'd imagine, of these two. Tom Wetmore still struggling to keep DeBarro at bay. Matt Danson still hanging around within a second of this battle as well. There's the run for DeBarro. Looks to the inside. Is it close enough? Yes, it is. Tom Wetmore didn't want to take the risk. Backs out, gives that number 9 or 8 position to the DeBarro's Sliders number 27 Toyota Camry entering turn 1. And behind you see Anansi Major pulling to the inside, letting Matt Danson through. Do you reckon, Terry, that Danson will be able to catch back up and fight this one out for 9th and 8th?
No. I think Danson's good where he's sitting. I mean, he's got a fast hot rod, but I don't know if he'll get to DeBarro, but he'll definitely get to Tom. Tom's been kind of struggling here. You saw the 27 be able to really send it on in there. That Tech 2 Toyota just having a hard time getting off the corner. I'm sorry, Chevrolet. I looked at the back of DeBarro, but Danson, that Chevrolet's been able to really bounce through the corners, having a good time rolling on the left side. You see right here, just really ripping the outside, and is able to pull it back down, get a great run off the corner. That's not been the case so far for Wetmore. He's just been he's been fighting this car a lot more than what he should. But hey, Phillip still stretching this lead out, man. That's pretty impressive coming down here at about 10 to go.
Yeah, the intervals have started to creep back in his direction. I think he just wants to keep Nieto at an arm's length distance, and that's what he's got right now at about 1.1 the difference. Phillip going to go underneath the lapped car. And a quick thank you from him to Joseph Tice, who didn't make it difficult. Joseph Tice now 2 laps down in 19th position. Again, this is such a tough track. If you're a 10th slower, 2 tenths slower a lap, which in racing terms sounds like a lot. If you snapped your fingers, you probably couldn't snap the same finger twice in a row and make it 0.2 of a second, right? I mean, that's how small that interval is, a lap around the racetrack. If you're that much off, you're going to finish this race on a green flag run like this, 2 laps down, 3 laps down. There's several drivers 2-3 laps down that have had no issues, right? It's just pace. This is a tough racetrack, and Agnew Phillip is appreciating all the help. You can see Tim Johnson missing the front end from a wreck earlier tonight, gets down to the apron and out of the way. He'll also allow that 2 machine to Sam Nieto to get on through. So after struggling and maybe getting a little bit of pushback from some lapped cars about 10-15 laps ago, Agnew Phillip gets a lot of help. You see there, Joseph Tice pulls well out of the way, allows Sam Nieto to go on through, and this time by 10 laps to go from Darlington. Agnew Phillip still 1.1 second ahead.
1.1 seconds ahead, and still continuing to fluctuate with that gap. Some laps Nieto's faster, sometimes Phillip's faster, and wouldn't you know it, those times fluctuating depending on where they are in relation to all of the lap traffic that is out on the racetrack. Phillip has lapped all the way up to 10th place with 9 laps coming this time by to go. Could potentially lap as far up as 9th or even 8th by the time this race is over, but I don't think we're going to get quite that far back up the running order.
Man, you know what just hit me, Evan?
Tell me.
Speaking of throwback weekend, This is throwing it back for me and you. This is the one. This is the first track I ever called a race with you. Was Darlington for the Retro 500 prelims, and I actually made you laugh so much that you've carried me with you everywhere you went. But you continue looking at the battle here for 8, DeBarro and Danson. Danson's caught up to the back bumper of DeBarro, but I don't know. Oh man, DeBarro got loose there, almost wrecked it.
Yeah, just about wrecked it. Saw Danson coming, got a little bit loose, and pulled out of the way. Danson's had quite a charge to the field. You gasped at his 36th position starting spot a little bit earlier in this race from way back down there, and he's raced his way into the top 10. So you got Danson from the 30s, Wetmore from the high 25s, all racing their way in to the top 10. This long green flag run, really fantastic stuff that we're seeing here tonight at the virtual Darlington Raceway for the drivers in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, putting on a great display of driving talent, and guys like Danson, guys like Phillip, guys like Freenosh love those long green flag runs because that is where they could make a difference and a lasting impact. 6 laps to go now. Nieto is closing. Last lap for Agnew Phillip, a 31.017. Nieto clocks in a 31.135. So the interval swings back in favor of your race leader. And in fact, that last lap by Agnew Phillip, the best lap of anybody on track. So I wonder, as Nieto inches into the 0.8 of a second bracket, if Phillip has saved enough to turn that wick up, go purple, if you will, at the end of this race and try to hang on.
So close to the end of this race, but it still is not over. Darlington is one of those tracks where cautions can come out late, especially due to how difficult the racetrack is and how even one lapse in concentration, which those lapses come more and more the later you get into one of these types of races. And one of those lapses of concentration could very well result in a late race yellow flag. I've seen that time and time again at Darlington. We haven't had a caution since the opening 15 laps of this race. And might get it here, though. Car just crashed out of turn 2. Harry Grindell got into it big time with Sean Casto and Matt Danson, but luckily it looks like we're going to escape it.
Oh, Harry. No. You were living up here. The fans were hollering and screaming for you. Come on, bring her home, man. But I think we look at the replay here. You look at what's going on. 70's up to the high side. You got the 52 down there. You got Danson, who, oh, man. That almost got big. That could have taken some hot shots out. But you talked about Agnew Phillip saving some of that Goodyear Eagle. I think he saved some because he's keeping it at bay at about a second here with coming to 2 to go.
Grindle's still struggling, by the way. Just hit the fence directly in front of your race leader, Agnew Phillip. I wonder if he really heated up those tires. He'll go down to the apron to get out of the way, but 2 laps to go for Agnew Phillip. This race will be official if he can get to the white flag.
Just needs to nowhere close to being able to make that pass.
And it's clean a racetrack in front of him, Terry. That's good news. He might get to Casto and Cato, but he's got about 9/10 looking for the white flag.
Yeah, I got 9/10 of a second here. White flag is out. It's waving. Can Agnew Phillip finally put one together, coming through 1 and 2? He might get to the back bumper of the 52 at Casto, but no reason to sweat it. The 94 looks hot and ready to take that amp energy thing up here to victory lane.
He's had a lot of speed this season, but hasn't been able to get the results when he has deserved them. He won the Clash at the LA Coliseum, but this one going to be his first points win of 2022. Agnew Phillip wins at Darlington.
Finally, every single race this year, he has had a race-winning car and has just never been able to put together a proper race win, but finally gets it done. And I believe with that, will also lock his spot into the playoffs.
He will get that critical win that'll put him into the postseason. It is career win number 3 in career start 50 for Agnell Phillip in the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, and he will bring it around to do the victory lap at a celebration, but a tip of the cap to the entire field as this race goes some 135 laps green to the end, and Agnell Phillip celebrates his first race win of the 2022 season. And we talk about maybe how critical wins will be, he came into tonight on the playoff bubble. This win going to do a lot for him as he becomes what is the 7th different race winner in 2022. Let's take a look at your SK Sim Racing full race results tonight from iRacing's virtual Darlington Raceway. Final margin of victory, 7.50 tenths of a second. Phillip over Nieto, who comes home second, and Brandon 6, who picks up the 2 bonus points for the most laps led tonight, ends up in third. We'll talk with all of them in just a moment. What a comeback for Andrew Freenosh from an EOL penalty early in this race to 4th, ahead of Michael Araya in P5. Kevin King comes home 6th. Nick Silver 7th. Danson for the back races his way to P8 with Anthony DeBarro and Tom Wetmore, your top 10.
You got Cody Harris right here in 11th with Thomas George in 12th. David Cobb, he goes in. All these drivers are 1 lap down, obviously. You got Darren Weinmaster, Brian Chambliss, Sean Castro, Harry G, man. Then they're 2 laps down at 17th with Joseph Theus, Michael Jordan, and Kyle Trudell rounding out your top 20.
Nazi Major in 21st with Eric Stanford in 22nd. Kyle Kamer is 23rd with the likes of Grant Davis in 24th. Brandon Bowie is 25th. Timothy Johnson is 26th. Cato 27th. Schmidt 28th. Horn and Miller 29th and 30th.
And continuing on through 31st position in this one, it goes to Chris Rabel, Brady Whitaker, Shane Ewing, to Bradley Burke, and Rick McBride, your top 35, ahead of Michael Kaczynski, Sean Kalis, Tom Morano, Nick Cohan, Chris Edwards, and Dylan Parker in 41st position. That is looked top to bottom at your SK Sim Racing full race results. SK Sim Racing is an iRacing team and channel with an emphasis on reaching those who are new to the oval sim racing world. You can find them online at facebook.com/SKSimRacing, on Twitter at SKSimRacing1, and we can race what the champions race by visiting sksimgear.com. Let's head down to Darlington Raceway Victory Lane, where we are stood by with the driver of the number 94 machine. Agnell Phillip is back in Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series Victory Lane. Agnell, congratulations. It's the 2nd checkered flag of the year, but the first points won to get yourself locked into the postseason. And I know that it's been frustrating at times having speed but not getting the results, including last week, starting so good at Dover. Tonight, though, you finally got the job done.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. It's nice to win one of these without some sort of gimmick too. So that was a real win. But yeah, it's been a really frustrating year in RSR for me this year, and it was, I knew I had pace. I didn't know I had this much pace, but I knew I had pace coming into today, and I just really I love Darlington. It's so cool to get a checkered flag here against this type of competition. So yeah, I'm super pumped, glad to be locked into the playoffs. Don't have to stress about that anymore, which is nice. But yeah, it was a great race. Props to Sam. I was sweating that entire second run there. I thought he was going to get me.
What was the difference you compare it to last week at Dover, another race that had a long green flag run to the end, in which it was Freenosh who bested you on the long run? Here tonight, lockstep with the likes of Nieto, chasing down 6 early. You undercut him, you take the lead, but tonight it was you who bested him on the long run. Was that just a thing where you love Darlington so much, or did you learn something with these next-gen cars from the Dover experience and put it into tonight?
Yeah, I guess a little bit of that. I mean, I think, with the way that the next gen is just so hard to drive and so on edge. I mean, you look at my car, I pancaked the side of it multiple times. I maybe had 50 seconds of damage at the end of the race. You just race the track, and I think some guys kind of are able to just kind of race comfortably and save tire, and others aren't. I know Drew had some trouble earlier on, but I think gaining a lot on pretty much everybody else who was around me in this race off of 2, which is something I consciously worked on from a year ago when we were at Darlington in the official series. I really wanted to nail that down, because that's where the long run pace comes from here. So yeah, I mean, I think I've figured out a little bit of how these next gen cars work. I think I think iRacing might throw us for a bit of a loop here in a few weeks when they do some updates based on some real world data. But, I think I'm finally starting to get the hang of the way that this version of the next gen drives.
All steps in the right direction. Of course, the race win going to be big for you, but you don't plan on stopping here. How do you carry this momentum forward now that we're halfway through the regular season?
Yeah, I just want to keep competing for wins and keep running good. I think I had a slow start both this year and last year, and I want to start ramping up a little earlier than I did last year, so that when we get to the playoffs, I'm challenging Drew and Bowie and Eberhardt and Sam and Brandon Six, who's been just awesome this year. He's been on a tear. All those guys. I want to be able to compete with them. So the only way to do that is to keep trying to find pace. There's no real letting off the gas, pun sort of intended.
It's been a lot of unique racetracks for the last few weeks. Bristol Dirt, you got Dega, Dover, Darlington. We get a break with the All-Star next Monday night, and then we come back, and it's a more unique tracks in a row, right? You get kind of what you expect at Charlotte, longest race of the year, but Gateway, Nashville, Road America. What is your outlook with those tracks coming up? Anyone that jumps out to you in particular?
Yeah, I wanna try and see if I can get to challenging Danson for a road course win here. I didn't get to lay down a Q lap at Coda. I don't think I would have been there on pace for that one, but I think if I were to have kind of a reach goal, I guess, for the rest of the year, it'd be to get to his pace on road courses. So I'm really looking forward to Road America. Not really looking forward to Gateway. I don't know that track particularly well. I'm just going to try and survive. And then Charlotte, I think is a cool track. I have ups and downs there, so we'll see. But I really like this part of the schedule, kind of going from some of the traditional ovals like Charlotte to short tracks or short track like things like Nashville Superspeedway, and then road courses. This is my kind of favorite part of the schedule, I think, other than the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this summer stretch is going to be really fun.
I'll let you get out of here. I know it was a hard-fought night. Before we do, though, Agnell, tell us a little bit about the throwback you went with tonight.
Yeah, I went with the Dale Jr. Throwback back to the Amp car days, 08 to whatever that was, 2012 or whatever. Big Junior fan growing up. So my friend Thomas Grau of TG Racing Graphics, who I had on the car, he was the one who did it up. I ran the same throwback last year. I don't know that I'm going to run a different one for any of these throwback races for the maybe for the rest of eternity. I really like this one, and he did a great job with it. But yeah, it's super cool. That's another thing about this, bringing this scheme to Victory Lane. But I wish Junior had done it more when he was in this scheme. But I'm happy that I could bring this one into Victory Lane.
Well, an added pro, it was fast tonight as well. We'll let you get out of here, Agnell. Anybody want to say hi to?
Yeah, gotta say thanks to my A51 guys. We're preparing for Kansas Road to Pro, so really looking forward to that. I think we got a good piece. Gotta say hi to my family, who I know are watching. We brought one home finally, and to my partner as well, who puts up with me doing this every night.
I'll tell you what, we appreciate you racing with us here on Monday nights, and I appreciate the time for chatting again. Congratulations on the win, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Evan.
Race winner tonight in the Southern 200. First points win of 2022. Third career win in the Full Throttle Cup Series for Agnell Phillip. We'll continue on down the running order. Sam Nieto just about closed the gap in Nolan. Ends up 3/4 of a second off your trackside with tonight's runner-up finisher.
Indeed I am. Sam Nieto joins us up now in the broadcast booth. And I have to say, Sam, what a drive for you trying to run down the likes of Agnell Phillip in those closing stages. Almost had him in the closing run, but hey, runner-up, still not the worst it could have been based on the early chaos tonight.
Hey, yeah, I'll take it. This was a week that I wasn't involved in the chaos. It was all in my mirrors, so it was a good run. I liked it.
So what do you think is something that might contribute to some of the challenges we saw early in the race here tonight? And what do you think kind of in those challenges sets this track apart from any other around the world?
This track's hard, man. It's just really hard. The track tonight was different than it had been all week in practice and in IS. It had this real weird loose condition driving into one, which it hadn't all week on cold tires. And then turn two coming off there, the exit to turn two was a lot more tight than it had been. So that probably threw some guys for a loop. I know it threw me for a loop. I struggled with turn two all night. I could not figure it out.
I believe we are going to have about a week break here then before we get set to go back at it again for more action in the RealSimRacing Cup Series. What do you think is going to be like for you in the races coming forward, especially when you take into consideration that it is going to be Charlotte Motor Speedway, the longest race on the season, coming on up next?
Oh, man, I've been praying for 1.5s. I'm tired of all this changing track stuff, road course to dirt to whatever. I'm ready for some 1.5s so I can get into a rhythm and hopefully knock out some more top fives.
Well, fingers crossed you'll be knocking out top fives all day long. Starting the course with the 300-mile race at Charlotte just 2 weeks from now. Before I let you go, then, Nieto, anybody you'd like to shout out for that number 2 car?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Justin Rowden. He painted this car. I think he got it done in a couple hours for me. I asked him real late if he wanted to paint me one. He said he did. He's a good friend. Thank you for that. I'd like to thank the Flat Out Boys for the week of preparation. Some of them got killed, and Michael had a good run. But, yeah, that's about it for me.
And thank you, Sam, for taking the time to join us here tonight. Best of luck in a couple of weeks at Charlotte.
All right, thanks. Have a good night.
And, well, with that, we're going to move on to our third and final finisher on the podium tonight. And I'll pass this one down to you, Terry, as you stand by with Brandon Six.
Brandon Six, you come home third, but you locked up the point for most laps sled, man. You had a bad, fast, hot ride. What could you have done different to go take it home to victory lane?
Unfortunately, not too much more. But the way the setup was with this weather, it was really tight in 1 and 2 for me. I know in the official races through the week, I did an NIS race and I was actually loose off of 1 and 2. But tonight it was plowing tight. As soon as you picked up any throttle, it just wouldn't turn. That was my biggest struggle. If it would have turned, I think I would have kept the long run pace, and I think I would have kept the lead for most of that race, honestly.
Well, I mean, you still got some good bonus points. You got a lot of points out there that was out on the line for you, and that's going to be key going in. You got the All-Star break, no big point stuff going on, but then you get out of the All-Star stuff, you go to Charlotte. It's a long race, big grueling time. Could that be the time we look at you and say, hey, the race winner basically every week so far, Brandon Six, going to go back and pull it in victory lane again?
Yeah, I think so. I'm actually excited for the Charlotte race coming up in 2 weeks. I'm actually excited to get to some 1.5 and see what this car can do. I think they updated the draft model, so we'll see how it plays out for Charlotte in a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, Brandon Six, before we get you out of here, anybody you want to say hello to?
Guys, thanks to Life of Sim Racer, the YouTube channel, Circle B Diecast, Bar Racing Network, Elbow Designs, and obviously the team, KIR. Put a ton of practice in for these things, so. And obviously thank you guys for putting on the broadcast.
We appreciate that. Not many people come in here and thank us, but I feel like we do a pretty good job. At Brandon 6, we'll see you at All-Star Week, and then we'll see you again at Charlotte.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
All right, Evan. Show's yours.
I'll tell you what. I wish I could tease you for the All-Star race next week, but it's about 95% set. I can't tell you about it yet. So maybe that's a good promo to follow all the RSR social accounts, because we'll let you know what's going to be happening next Monday night here on RaceSpotTV. Tomorrow on the RSR social channels, we'll let you know what's going to be happening for the RSR All-Star race. But at least for tonight here from Darlington, Nolan, I'll go to you on this one. 2 yellows early. Thought it was going to be a sloppy night. Long green flag run to the end. Very similar to what we saw at Dover. And good to see Agnew Phillip kind of conquer those demons. And after losing last week on the long run, wins it here on that 135-lap green flag run to the end.
I have to say, I think these are the kinds of races that I think everybody likes, right? Get all the messiness out of the way early, and then we can just focus on good, hard racing. A lot of people say that you remember a race by what happens in the last few laps? Not by what happens in the first few, unless, of course, the few drivers that got collected in those early incidents. And considering the last few laps had nothing but hard racing, I think that's what this race is going to be remembered for, other than the early race chaos.
Well, and what's funny, Terry, is I mentioned, look how fun the schedule is. We got all these kind of different racetracks, and 2/3 of the drivers we talked to said, I hate it. I want to get to an intermediate, right? They want to get rid of a little bit of the unknown. They want to go to a place like Charlotte, which, again, a long race, 200 laps. That's twice the distance of the Coke Series races on the 1.5 miles this year. That's going to be a long Monday night. That's in 2 weeks for our next points race, even though it is a long race. At 8 to 60s and 70s, you're not worried about the attrition on the race car. Your car's going to make it to the end. It's up to you to execute there for round number 10 of the year for the Life of a Sim Racer 300 at Charlotte. And then some more weird stuff, right? You got Gateway, you got Nashville, you got Road America. So seems like a lot of drivers who have struggled recently really need a good night at Charlotte.
Yeah, it's a lot of them that need a good night at Charlotte. But it's good for them. They got All-Star Week. The All-Star race coming up next week. It kind of takes some pressure off of them. They know they can just go out there and have some fun. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that it's supposed to be fun when you're out here. I know you're battling with sponsors and you're battling other people, but it's all fun and games. You're having a good time out here. It's fun for us. The drivers might not have liked it. But, man, this part of the schedule was great. I mean, I came on at Bristol Dirt, and my heavens, has this just been a crazy, eventful couple races that we've had? But I enjoyed this type of race, and I hope we get back to the more beating and banging short tracks.
Hey, you picked a good time to rock up, and we got a lot coming up in the second half of the regular season in 2 weeks' time when we go points racing. But until next time, that is it for us here tonight from the track Too Tough to Tame. So on behalf of our entire team at Real Sim Racing and RaceSpotTV, for our partners at SK Sim Racing, and for your broadcast team tonight, for Tyler Maxon downstairs, for Terry Radford, Nolan Rempel, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Agnew Phillip on his first win of 2022. The road march is on next Monday night for the All-Star race. That race and every race of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from Darlington.